The Supreme Court has just shaken the foundation of gun ownership across all 50 states with a decisive 6-3 ruling that could redefine the rules for every firearm owner in America. This is not just another legal update. It's a seismic shift that directly impacts your rights, your responsibilities, and the laws you thought you understood. Today, we break down what this historic ruling means, why it matters, and the immediate consequences you need to be aware of. From licenses and background checks to mandatory training requirements, every gun owner should be paying attention to what just happened. This is your wake-up call. The landscape has changed, and staying informed is no longer optional. If you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button now so you won't miss any follow-up coverage. With every development, there will be critical updates, legal challenges, and actions you can take to protect your rights. The court's 6-3 decision isn't abstract. It affects real people, real states, and real firearms in circulation right now. And while some may cheer the ruling as a victory for constitutional rights, others see it as a legal challenge waiting to explode. The questions are immediate. How will your state respond? What changes are coming? And what do you need to do today to stay compliant while exercising your rights fully? But before we dive into the details, let's set the stage. This isn't just about new regulations. It's about reaffirming and expanding key constitutional principles established in prior landmark cases, including the Bruin precedent from 2022. The court didn't simply tweak a few rules. They reinforced the idea that fundamental rights cannot be burdened by bureaucracy, arbitrary discretion, or outdated procedures. And now, every state law, every licensing process, and every requirement that restricts immediate access is under scrutiny. The first question on everyone's mind: what exactly did the 6-3 decision change, and why should every gun owner care? Let's break it down. One of the most explosive aspects of the ruling directly challenges Reshapes, or discretionary permit systems, still used in states like California and New York. Historically, these laws allowed officials to approve or deny carry licenses based on subjective criteria, creating a system where rights were conditional, not guaranteed. The Supreme Court's ruling makes it clear: discretion has no place in fundamental rights. The message is blunt: if your right is constitutional, it cannot depend on a clerk's opinion, a bureaucrat's mood, or outdated state policies that delay, deny, or restrict access without historical justification. This ruling essentially declares that discretionary denial of carry permits is unconstitutional. Long gone are the days when states could make you wait, question your character, or argue subjective grounds for denying access. The court's logic emphasizes that rights must be immediate, enforceable, and protected, not diluted by procedural hurdles. That means every state relying on reshapes systems is now on notice. Reform is not optional, and legal challenges are likely to follow swiftly. For gun owners, this isn't just theory. It impacts how quickly you can obtain a license and exercise your constitutional rights without unnecessary obstruction. The implications ripple across the country. States that resist change may face accelerated federal scrutiny and lawsuits challenging every discretionary denial. Gun owners must understand that this isn't just about paperwork. It's about a fundamental shift in how rights are recognized and enforced. And as this block closes, we move to the next immediate consequence: delays in licensing and background checks, which the Supreme Court now sees as potential violations of constitutional access. The clock is ticking, and understanding these changes is essential to protect your ability to carry without legal surprises. The court has made it clear: rights cannot wait. Long licensing delays, once considered routine, are now constitutionally suspect. This ruling emphasizes that the right to carry is immediate and active. Any system that forces gun owners to endure long wait times for permits or approval could be infringing on their core rights. The principle is simple, yet revolutionary. A right that cannot be exercised today is no right at all. Gun owners in states with extended waiting periods should pay close attention, as these laws may now face rapid legal challenges, potentially opening doors to faster, more predictable processes. Background checks, a cornerstone of modern gun regulation, are also under scrutiny. The Supreme Court's decision underscores that these checks must be rapid, fair, and consistent. Delays like those seen in the NEETS system may now be seen as unconstitutional if they prevent timely access to firearms. This doesn't necessarily eliminate checks entirely, but it sets a new legal expectation: they cannot be used as a barrier. The ruling signals to states and federal systems alike that any delay or inconsistency could be grounds for litigation, and gun owners should expect reforms or court battles to follow closely. And while the spotlight often falls on licensing and checks, training mandates are next in line for review. Requirements that are overly burdensome or historically unsupported now face legal challenges, emphasizing that rights should not depend on meeting arbitrary educational hurdles. As we move into the next block, we'll break down how mandatory training rules, some considered standard today, may be reconsidered under this new ruling. The question is clear: Can government-imposed training stand in the way of a fundamental constitutional right, or is history about to redefine what is enforceable? Mandatory training requirements for gun owners have always been controversial, but the Supreme Court's 6-3 ruling now calls their constitutionality into question. Historically, training was seen as a reasonable expectation to ensure responsible firearm use. However, the court emphasizes that no requirement, no matter how well-intentioned, can act as a barrier to exercising a fundamental right. Excessive, arbitrary, or costly training programs may now be vulnerable to legal challenges, especially if they effectively deny access to law-abiding citizens. Gun owners must recognize that this ruling elevates the right itself above procedural hurdles and historical precedent for optional restrictions. The court's reasoning is grounded in historical context. While safety and competence are important, the Constitution cannot be circumvented by modern regulations that create obstacles where none historically existed. This is a profound shift for states that have leaned heavily on training mandates as a form of control. From mandatory classes to complex certification systems, every rule that delays or complicates access could now be challenged successfully in court. The message is unmistakable: the right is primary, and the path to exercise it must remain clear. States will have to reconcile their training systems with this new legal reality, and challenges are expected to multiply. Looking forward, gun owners must be vigilant. As we move into the next topic, background checks and waiting periods remain under the microscope. The 6-3 decision signals that bureaucratic delays and subjective hurdles in both licensing and verification are now legally risky. The clock is ticking, and the Supreme Court has effectively declared that these systems must be fast, fair, and historically justified or face immediate scrutiny. Understanding these changes will be crucial in navigating the evolving landscape of gun ownership. Another major consequence of the ruling is the tension between federal constitutional rights and state laws. The court makes it clear that fundamental rights do not stop at state borders. States attempting to enforce restrictive gun laws now risk rapid federal intervention. As the ruling reinforces that constitutional protections are supreme, this could lead to a cascade of lawsuits challenging state-specific laws, especially in MASHU or high-restriction jurisdictions. Gun owners across the country need to recognize that a victory or setback in one state may have nationwide repercussions. The implications are profound. States that continue to impose heavy restrictions may find themselves facing court orders requiring immediate compliance with constitutional standards. This could result in rapid changes to licensing systems, waiting periods, and even enforcement practices. For gun owners, the ruling reinforces a simple truth: your rights are federally guaranteed, and no state can legally erode them without triggering judicial action. Understanding this dynamic is essential for anyone navigating firearm laws today. And as this block closes, the legal framework established by the court clearly points to the Brune precedent as the guiding standard for all future cases. The next section will explore how this ruling effectively strengthens Brune, creating a legal litmus test for evaluating gun laws nationwide. Gun owners must stay informed, as the precedent will influence every court decision from here on out, affecting both restrictive and permissive jurisdictions alike. The stage is set for a nationwide reassessment of firearm regulations. Block 6, Brune Reborn and Future Outlook. The 6-3 decision doesn't just build on Brune, it revitalizes it, giving the 2022 precedent renewed authority. Courts now have a clear directive: laws regulating firearm possession must align with historical tradition. This standard provides a framework for evaluating current and future legislation, forcing states to justify restrictions against historical norms. For gun owners, this means any new law will be scrutinized rigorously, and long-standing rules may face legal challenges to determine whether they truly reflect constitutional intent. The ruling also sets the stage for an inevitable wave of lawsuits and legal reforms. As states attempt to navigate this new landscape, some will adjust laws proactively, while others may resist, prompting litigation that could escalate quickly to higher courts. Gun owners must anticipate changes, not just locally, but across state lines. This is a pivotal moment. Those who understand the legal framework and act accordingly will be best positioned to protect their rights, while others may find themselves caught in a rapidly shifting regulatory environment. Finally, the future is uncertain, but the message is clear: stay informed, stay vigilant, and prepare for rapid changes in both state and federal law. Whether it's licensing, background checks, or mandatory training, every aspect of gun ownership is under the microscope. By understanding the scope and impact of this historic 6-3 ruling, you can anticipate challenges, protect your constitutional rights, and navigate the evolving legal landscape with confidence. And remember, this story is far from over. The next wave of reforms and legal battles is already on the horizon.